Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the next to last of our monthly programming for Eastern Energy Expo on Demand. We have a very interesting, our last two programs are extremely pertinent to anyone that is in the heating fuel delivery business as a result of what has transpired over the past couple of months. Today, we are very, very pleased to have two old friends back, John Vrabel and Mark Stillman from Energy Engine, who will be discussing in our new COVID world, it is now online everything. For those of you who don't know, John and Mark, Mark is the president of Energy Edge Advisory Group and a founding partner at Energy Engine. He has nearly 30 years of business strategy and leadership experience with energy and banking. He focuses on propelling traditional businesses into the digital age, aligning emerging market forces with how companies position for the future. In energy, Mark possesses deep expertise in critical technology platforms, operations, as well as risk management and fuel hedging. He works with clients on specific initiatives, including growth strategies, organizational scaling, and turnaround work for at-risk organizations. Mark holds a BS in Applied Economics from the University of Connecticut. John Vrabel is the preeminent e-commerce expert in downstream fuels, having launched and managed companies that have sold more fuel online than any other organization. With 20 years experience on both the dealer and vendor sides of the desk, he has keen insight into the digital-first consumer and how dealers can enjoy the growth and profitability that comes with doing business online. With over 30 years as a business development executive, his experience spans publicly traded, multinational organizations, as well as private mid-market companies. His passion is helping businesses to grow by sharing fact-based information upon which clients can make informed and effective decisions. A reminder to everyone that you will have the ability to ask questions through the portal. Be sure to type them in and we will handle questions at the end of the presentation. And without further ado, John Vrabel, the floor is yours, sir.
Well, thank you, Eric. Thank you for that kind introduction, and also thank you to the entire Eastern Energy Expo staff for making this forum available to share this information with everyone this morning. We appreciate and welcome everyone that is attending this morning's webinar. We understand that we have a rather large group on the call, and we're delighted that that's the case as we talk about something that all of us have certainly witnessed over the last 5, now into our 6th month of our global pandemic. I say 5 months, although it certainly seems like much longer than that to myself, as I'm sure it is to all of you. But I hope you are all well and certainly adapting. So with that, we're going to jump into our presentation this morning in terms of what is now being called online everything, as the consumer has certainly dramatically changed in terms of how they approach their lives and approach their business as well. And these behaviors have really changed forever. It really has been unprecedented in terms of the things that we've seen and we're going to share with you this morning. As far as our agenda, really 3 things that we're going to cover. I'm going to cover number 1 and 2, which is really the pandemic and how that has changed our world forever. And also talk about this online everything and specifically consumer behavior, what it means for us personally that we've witnessed over the last number of months, and directly what it means for us in our fuel industry. And then I'm going to turn it over to Mark, and Mark's going to take us through, what you can do in terms of consumer-facing technology to adapt your business to this very changed world that we're in. So with that, I'm going to take a look first just at the last 5 months and see how digital has really changed things for us. So looking at this screen, and I'm going to grab a highlighter here for us just in case we need it. But looking at some of the things that have impacted us in our personal lives, you know, we can look at what the automobile industry has done since the pandemic. You know, we can absolutely sell our car online, buy another car online, have it delivered to our home, touchless delivery, go and pick it up at the dealer on curbside. There are a number of different models that allow us to engage with that consumer, and we've seen companies that have all of a sudden come into the forefront, like Carvana, Vroom, and so forth, that make all of this, you know, possible. And digital is really rocking it in terms of the auto industry at this point. And the experts say, hey, that's not going to change. That's going to continue to be the case. We look at our grocery stores and how we've interacted with our vital grocery purchases over the last 5 months. The industry has said that, you know, while these e-commerce channels or these digital channels they've had in place now for years, within the last 5 months, they have accomplished what they had projected to accomplish in 5 years. So really greatly accelerated. This is an interesting statistic that I found surprising, that 80%, a full 80% of consumers have engaged with grocery stores online since the pandemic started. Banking obviously has changed. We now have touchless branches. Lobbies may not be open. You may have to get access, make appointments, so you could have the drive-through, or you're using ATMs, or, you know, in a lot of cases, we're doing things digitally. We're not even going to ATMs with a check to deposit that we may receive. We're using our smartphone to be able to do that, so we're absolutely touchless. One of the more dramatic ones that at least has been very interesting to me to watch is telehealth. You know, doctor's appointments online. Pre-COVID, and if any of you have attended any of our other various sessions that we've had since the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, we've continued to update some of this information and done it in different worlds. But reality was, hospitals pre-COVID would have could measure their telehealth visits in the hundreds within a year. Okay, so as recently as 2019, last year. Now they're measuring those visits by the hundreds in a day. That dramatic of change. Real estate, the same thing. Obviously, much more being done online. We've got organizations like Zillow, which is all online, that allows us to do so many things. I have a friend that does closings for a very large mortgage company, and you know, closings are being done in parking lots as people social distance between their cars, and you know, what can't be done online remotely that needs to be witnessed as part of a real estate closing is being done you know, face-to-face, socially distanced between vehicles in parking lots at all hours of the day. People have figured out how to engage digitally, to do things that we haven't been able to do before. Meal delivery, certainly the same thing with restaurants, curbside, online ordering. You probably have seen, like I have seen, that permanent changes have been made in parking lots for curbside pickups at all sorts of retailers. That type of engagement is not going away. Video conferencing. Here we are in a video conference this morning. Before the pandemic, few of us had even heard about Zoom or knew what it was. Now Zoom has become a verb in terms of how we're going to engage. And if I had to guess, most of you that are watching this this webinar this morning are probably also working from home. So our lives have changed. If we bring this more current, and as I was preparing for this presentation just last week, many of these national and multinational organizations were releasing their second quarter reports to public companies, which these four certainly are. And they're retailers and service organizations, and that relates really directly to our industry, because if you're a fuel marketer or you're a fuel dealer, you are a retailer and you are a service organization. So So while the delivery of fuel or the services that you provide may be different than maybe a Home Depot or a Kohl's, in the consumer's mind, they still put us in the retailer and service organization framework that they have. So I think it's informative for us to look at these giants in the industry and see how their business has changed as recently as the second quarter, which is April, May, and June. Okay, so you translate that to heating, and we're talking about out of season. But we'll get to that, and we'll relate this to the to our industry on just the next slide. Well, let's take a look at these quickly. Home Depot, second quarter, sales up 24%, online sales up 100%, doubled for the quarter as more people engaged online. Walmart, in the case of Walmart, sales up 9%. Okay, still significant in the retailing world to see that kind of an increase. I mean, typically these retailers, if they're looking at a 2 or 3% increase in sales during the course of the year, they're having a great year. So 9% is significant. Online sales up 97%, almost doubling. Obviously, very, very important to their business. And certainly they were one of the retailers, as all four of these were, that have been working on and investing in their various digital channels for a number of years now. That doubling of online sales also kind of interesting, and even in quarter one before COVID, their online sales were still up 74%. So obviously people are going online. Target, similar type of situation. There's a multi-lines retailer. Sales were up 24%, digital sales up 195, so almost a tripling in digital sales during COVID. And then Kohl's, which is a little bit different in this group because Kohl's had to close their stores. Okay, so they were shut down in most areas of the country, I guess, for weeks or in some cases months. So they saw their sales slide overall in the second quarter, down 23%. Although interesting was that 23% loss was much less than the analysts anticipated. And that was really driven by their digital sales increasing by 58%. So strong digital performance, even for a store that was physically closed. So what does it all mean? Neil Sanders with Global Data Retailer said, it's demonstrating that this is really a dramatic shift in how and where shoppers are spending their money. Obviously, the numbers speak for themselves. And Michelle Gass, who's the CEO at Kohl's, points out very strongly, and I didn't grab the entire quote, but essentially, people are shopping more digitally. It's happening, and it's happening universally as we see around us. So let's turn our attention to our industry. Let's bring it home and talk about what's going on there. So since I had these quarter two results for retailers and service organizations, I went into, or I had our people, I didn't do it, I wouldn't know how to do this, but fortunately we have people that are a little bit smarter with databases than I am, and said, let's go into our Energy Engine network and let's look at the second quarter and see what happened in the fuel industry. So these are numbers across our entire network. So we're talking about a significant number of dealers and marketers, multi-fuels and so forth. So what did we see? One of the most notable things that we saw was registrations at 101% greater than the same quarter, the second quarter of 2019. So a significant increase in registrations. Also in terms of orders, up 67%, very strong. E-commerce has continued to improve, and it has steadily for the last 10 years that we've been had involvement with the Energy Engine and been doing that. But even prior to that, when I was on your side of the desk, as a marketer and dealer myself, we saw consistent growth year after year. So no surprise that orders in gallons increased in the second quarter, but it was a little bit of a surprise in terms of how strong that growth was, because those are strong numbers. And in terms of registrations, I mean, one of the things to keep in mind, obviously, is we are talking about April, May, and June. So we are out of the season. So the registration number initially surprised me when we first discovered it by accident within the first month after we were sheltering in place. And that registration number, particularly surprising as I looked deeper after I saw this at individual dealers and their performance. And you know, we, for the most part, you know, for most dealers, we weren't talking about a handful of new registrations or even a couple of dozen. It was certainly very common to see dealers with better than 100 or hundreds, and even greater than 1,000. In fact, one of the top performers during the quarter was better than 1,000 new customer registrations during that second quarter in the off season. And that wasn't a mega dealer either. There's a one location dealer serving a couple of counties, you know, was it. So, you know, what does this mean for fuel dealers and the consumers that they serve? You know, what we've seen for years and continue to see it as we've talked with the dealers that are experiencing this type of growth is, you know, customers are telling them, hey, it's all about this digital experience. You know, we want to engage with you anytime, wherever we are, and on our laptop, on our computer, our desk computer, on our mobile device. And, you know, and while we enjoy talking with you and we really like you and like doing business with you, we really want to do it unattended. We want to do it ourselves. So given that as the facts and the data in terms of what, you know, what we have, you know, what do we do now? And I copied this particular quote, and I'm going to break a cardinal rule of presentations. And I'm actually going to read off of this slide because I think it's so critical to the way that we think about this and our future, and where this comes from. This comes from Accenture. So if you remember Anderson and Anderson Consulting, big Ada County firm, Anderson Consulting was part of that organization, and they then became Accenture. But to give you an idea in terms of the stature of this organization, their active clients, they count within their active clients 9 out of the top 10 global Fortune 100 companies. So when Accenture speaks, companies listen. So I think this is important. COVID-19 has been one of the biggest global challenges of our generation. Customer behavior is changing at a staggering pace. We saw that in the numbers, certainly. And digital adoption has become necessary for survival. When the pandemic eventually recedes, sales and service organizations will have to continue to accommodate new attitudes and behaviors. Leaders must take immediate action to meet consumer expectations in the post-crisis era. Goes on to say the post-digital age has shown no signs of slowing down, and the need for rapid business transformation has never been greater. So this is real. It's happening today. It's going to continue. So with that, I'm going to call on Eric to shift the presentation over to Mark. So Mark can talk with us about you know, what it means for all of you as marketers. Mark, over to you, buddy.
Thank you, John. Let's get this presentation up here, and you tell me when we're good.
I can see it.
Are we full screen?
Yeah, there you're in slideshow mode. Perfect. Very good.
Beautiful. All right. I always get nervous with these magic tricks in the middle of a presentation. Good morning, John. Thank you very much. It's really helpful and valuable for me, even who's living in this world every day, to get a reminder of what COVID has done to consumer behavior. Obviously, we don't want to focus just on that this morning. Clearly, there's been an immense amount of suffering, both in terms of you know, people being sick and unfortunately passing away, as well as the economic suffering. So we are giving this presentation today in the context of fuel dealers and what it means for our collective future, but obviously we can't lose sight of the real important damage that this has done to our country. But we have really, I think, all stepped up. We continue to work hard to do that. I think it's also important to note that COVID didn't catalyze this change in consumer behavior, right? It was just an amazing accelerant on an already burning fire. This move towards digital everything, or what I call digital first, which I guess in its classical definition means that when we go to research or buy something, products or services, we think cell phone, tablet first before we think driving somewhere or making a phone call. COVID has really just reshaped and accelerated an already ongoing process. We know that online engagement, e-commerce was a huge force, was changing our lives dimensionally, almost on a daily basis. And now we're living in a new world. I have a teenage daughter who said to me that when we're ordering ice cream cones online and then picking them up, you can rest assured that we're doing everything online at that point. As it relates to fuel dealers, I think there's probably more confusion out there still on e-commerce and online fuel ordering than there are clear answers. And I say that with peace and love to channel my inner Ringo Starr here. John and I speak a lot. I write a lot of articles for magazines, and we are getting asked more and more to make these presentations and on e-commerce, write articles on e-commerce, and that's not because we're the greatest orators or authors in the world. I think it speaks more to the interest level of an industry and a dealer community in what e-commerce is. How are all these forces affecting my business? I feel it, I hear it, I know my customers are different, but what is it really doing? I also think from real world experience that people like to challenge this thinking. I've been, and some of you on the phone might have witnessed some of my presentations, they can be confrontational. The concept of moving your thinking away from the traditional full service customer and the value of that customer to addressing this e-commerce, digital only, sort of pushing away some of our traditional value proposition can push buttons. It's going to create a confrontation, and I'm fine with that. We're fine with that. We like to have that conversation. We like to talk about how fuel dealers can very easily and happily be in the full service business, but also address this sort of COD online market that is fast emerging. So with that as a backdrop, and John's analysis of how fast and quickly we have all adjusted to this online everything, I want to talk about what you can do. I think the biggest question that we get when we give either presentations or go to a trade show and people walk by our booth is, I get what you're talking about, Mark and John. I get the consumer stuff. I'm on Amazon every day. My daughter is a card-carrying member of the Amazon club. She wouldn't shop any other way. I think a lot of young people are that way too. I get that. Sold. But what can I do? What does it mean for me? So I think that has really sort of been amplified by this current situation where fuel dealers see this opportunity, they see the world changing, and they want to make sure that they're staying caught up, that they don't get left behind, because we are already playing a little bit of a catch-up game. So there's sort of two tracks here. It's like, as Charles Dickens said, it's the best of times, it was the worst of times, and the tale of two cities. There are things that fuel dealers can feel very, very optimistic about, and there are areas that we need to adjust and improve in our businesses to keep up with this sort of digital first consumer, and we'll get into that in a second. First of all, I think that you should all be very proud, and this is not pandering. I've been in this industry for 30 years. I was not born and raised, so I don't pretend to be like the folks on the phone who are multi-generational sort of caretakers of legacy businesses and the responsibility that comes along with that. But I've learned a lot about this industry. I love this industry. I will be in this industry as long as I am able, and really appreciate sort of the unique relationship that this industry has with consumers. That legacy and that history and that pride actually positions you really, really well in the context of this COVID situation and what it's done to consumers. The brand story is probably more valuable, certainly more important than it's ever been, right? We always talk about reliability and comfort and security in this industry. And for a really long time, those were just words on a brochure. But now, when people's very existence, certainly in March and April, when we were literally in survival mode, we were locked down in our homes, a reliable source of home energy became a palpable reality. Wow. And I think that drove a lot of growth in the heating oil and propane market in terms of, I'm going to shift myself to someone that I really trust, and a brand that makes sense. Maybe I was a crazy price shopper, but maybe that's not exactly the best approach for me. Maybe I need to focus more on who is this person and are they there for me? We have an incredibly strong supply chain. We have an incredibly strong infrastructure. I think consumers really like the fact that we're there. We have the fuel. We can get it to their homes. They don't have to do much of anything to do it. And I think this local sort of, this whole sort of emergence or reemergence, I don't even know how to phrase it, but this whole farm to table thing was cute in the food industry. But this local community-based business that I want to drive by the place who controls the comfort and energy in my home, and I want to support that local business. We're all in this together. We're all struggling. I want to do what I can. I know that I have completely changed my shopping habits, whether it's online or when I'm shopping for something that I need to go to the store for, it's local. I'm trying very, very hard to support local restaurants, local businesses. You already have that in your DNA. That's part of your historical value prop. For a while, maybe it felt glib to consumers, but I think now it's more important than it's ever been. I think that you're a resource of information. One thing for sure that we know about the COVID situation is that simply buying things is not enough. That's not what customers are looking for. They're looking for information. They're looking for things that can help them with their purchasing decision, help them shape their lives better. We as an industry have always been a purveyor of information. We're sort of in the information business in the energy side of the world. I think that this whole concept of omni-channel is really, really important, that the fuel business is perfectly positioned to deliver. And if people are confused about what an omni-channel business model is, it's meaning allowing the consumer to choose how to engage you. So historically, it was either pick up the phone and we'll mail you a bill, or it was automatic delivery, but we still needed to do a lot of phone work, and we still needed to do a lot of paper billing. To, okay, that's great, but what about people who want to do it online? What about people who want to pay their bill online? What about people who, like e-commerce customers that we're talking about today, who want to do all of it online? They don't want to engage anybody ever. They want to be in complete control. That self-determination is what drives them. That's what's important. Can we set up a business where it's not one size fits all? For a long time in this industry, and I would say that this has changed in the last decade, it was our way or the highway. This is how we did business as a heating oil and propane company, and Mr. and Mrs. Consumer, this is how you will adjust to us. Obviously, that's been flipped around, but consumers really value your ability to say, we're here for you. We have an incredibly strong brand. We're very proud of who we are and what we can do. You choose how to engage with us. So we are really, really well positioned. But, the big but is that we have to make adjustments. I lead this off by saying that I heard somebody who's very smart, who I do respect a lot, say at an industry event last year, that until Amazon starts shipping oil and propane through the mail, we don't have to worry about online fuel sales. I think that is a really reckless mindset. I think it's actually ignoring consumers. It's an arrogant position that consumers for heating oil and propane are somehow wholly unique and different. and that we're not at risk from the online forces. No, we are at risk from the online forces. Consumers are consumers, whether they're buying fighter jets or lollipops. We all behave the same way. I don't want to burst anybody's bubble, but we are not inoculated. Excuse me, I've been doing so much presenting and talking this week. We are not inoculated from the forces of e-commerce and online consumer behavior. So what do we need to do as an industry? Online engagement does remain a weakness. We are still a very tactile industry. We have websites. We might even have a portal, and we'll talk about in a second that's far from ubiquitous and universal. But we don't do really well with online engagement. We like the handshake sort of business model of the past. So when we talk about online engagement, dealers almost push back on it a little bit. We've been very slow to adopt customer-facing technology, and that's okay. I think part of that was the mythology that we were going to be fine and not have any pressures from the Amazon generation, but we sure are. We need more self-service options. Consumers just don't want to be on the phone, and honestly, they don't want to be left in the dark either. This whole notion of a full-service automatic keep fill if you're a propane customer that basically doesn't have to do anything, that's not how customers are anymore. They need interactivity. They don't want to be left in the dark. They want to participate as you are learning in their business. We know that consumers in this industry are frustrated by a lack of technology that they get elsewhere, that they can get at the local restaurant that maybe they can't get at their heating oil and propane company. Communication, again, we have this sort of belief that if we don't have to communicate a lot, then that customer is somehow stickier because we're making their life easier and more efficient. You've got to put that aside. Consumers want a lot of communication. And this whole digital first concept, which is consumers think online, they think telephone before they think anything. If you're not online in a way that they want you to be online, then it's a challenge. So we have a great opportunity here. These are adjustments. These are small adjustments. And in fact, I would argue that this is more of a mindset shift. These tools are all available. These strategies are all available. Your companies are full of really smart people. You have outside marketing firms and different things that you have the mind share to do this. It's almost a matter of saying, okay, we're going to do it. I get where the consumer is going. I get what they want us to do. So first thing is let's define e-commerce very quickly, right? So it's a confusing topic. It's abstract, e-commerce. I think that the first thing you have to think or acknowledge is that e-commerce is not your website. Okay, you may have the best website in the world, and it may be really fun, but if it can't transact the entire customer journey, then it's just a billboard. I'm sorry, websites are almost becoming a thing of the past. They're great to have, you need to have them, but consumers will never go to your website and read the volumes of things that you've written. They'll want to click and have quick access, and if they can't do it in maybe 20 or 30 seconds, then they're not going to do it at all. So we know that static websites are not e-commerce. We know that portals, by a classical definition, and we love the portal companies and we have great relationships with the folks that are in the portal business. Most of our customers run both a portal and an e-commerce solution. But a portal is really designed for your existing customers. It's a data in system. Even if they can order, it's just here's my order, and then somewhere in the background, either automated or somebody grabbing emails is just using the same workflow that you would normally use, but your existing customers are coming in to a different channel. That's not e-commerce, right? So you have to sort of think like, okay, well then, Mark, what is e-commerce? I just challenge you to think about your last experience with Amazon. It's hard to believe that there's not someone in the world who hasn't bought something on Amazon. And if they haven't, then they bought something from Cabela's or LL Bean or Esurance somewhere. E-commerce is a digital relationship. You're going online, you're learning, you're being prompted, you're being validated with messages, with chat, with texts, with emails for your behavior. If you order, your order is confirmed. It's instantly an email being sent to you. There's incentives and promos being sent to you. If you don't order, then they come looking for you and give you incentives and thank you for visiting that site. That is e-commerce. And most of the technology in your ecosystem today cannot do that interactive bilateral communication in an automated way, as if your e-commerce system is a proxy for you. It's a virtual customer service group, if you will. And that really is our future. We have to get to a place where a consumer can take the whole journey from the awareness of who you are to loyal long-term patronage and everything in between. That's where you need to live. So I promised that I would show you what e-commerce looks like. I am not promoting the energy engine here. I am promoting concepts. You will not see the energy engine anywhere except maybe in the slide deck thing. Before we get there, though, I just want to sort of preamble that by saying where are we already? Well, most of the digital engagement that we have in our industry is built around full service customers. There's portals, there's monitoring, and then there's, of course, the online sort of e-payment. So most of the engagement stuff is built for full service customers. But only 30% of dealers in combination of heating oil and propane have a portal. Think about that. It feels like everybody has a portal, but there's 60 or 70% of the people out there that don't have a portal. You know, tank monitoring is important, along with the app and different things. And again, we're rooting for the folks who are in the monitoring business because it does provide delivery optimization for sure. But only 15% of heating oil companies have monitors, and that doesn't mean that they have monitors for everyone. That they might just have a handful. I mean, this is really amazing technology that's only penetrated a very small amount of the market. And online payments and e-payments, only about 30% of the industry is there. So you have great technology available to you, but you don't have widespread adoption of these solutions, which probably, again, talks more to mindset than anything. As a reference point, the utility industry, I know that they're, you know, the antichrist, if you will, for our industry, but the electrify everything movement, they're at 85 or 90% online payments. That's a really, really stark difference. They're at 70 to 80% of monitors and smart meters. That kind of real-time visibility into their customers in two directions. They're outrunning our industry. So consumers are being trained, because everybody has electricity, around this sort of ecosystem that they're not necessarily getting from us. So these full service engagement tools are great, but what about, you know, a hybrid customer? What about someone who's not a full service customer? What about someone who's a will call customer? What about someone who's a COD customer? This might be a customer that you're not that familiar with. We know just by research and by talking to dealers for many years that as it stands now, roughly in some markets, half of the total volume being consumed for heating oil is being bought on a COD will call basis. Granted, in some markets it's less. I don't know what it doesn't mean your customer base looks that way. But in some markets it's more. If you look at the 128 loop in Boston, if you look at Long Island, it's more like 60% of the gallons are being bought will call COD. In the propane business, there's always been a large amount of will call customers who are unpredictable for whatever reason, even if you own the tank. But that's a big part of the market. If you look at that range of 20 to 60 in heating oil, and we know in propane it's 30, 40, 50% potentially that's on some form of will call, that's a big part of the market. You're answering a lot of phone calls. If you look at the research, that phone call for a will call customer is costing you about $6. They don't want to call any more than you want them to call. So what do you do with this sort of hybrid customer? You move them online with e-commerce, and this is what e-commerce looks like. It's not just that they can order fuel in a shopping cart or a portal. That's not what customers are looking for, and that's not what you're looking for, because these consumers don't want to talk to you. If they don't want to talk to you, how do you therefore present your brand, your value proposition, all the reasons that they should do business with you which mostly is done by your CSRs currently. They're the purveyors of your brand story. But they can't, it's an elephant through a garden hose. It's only so much that they can talk about. And yeah, you have marketing communications, but if you get 1 or 2% readership on that, then that's a home run. So 98% of your customer base is ignoring it. If you engage them online, and by that I mean engage them in a dialogue, a digital dialogue. So they go out and check heating oil prices or propane prices. It's not just, I'm going to go check the price. You look at this real estate here, they're being prompted for action all over the place. There are spring sales, there are new customer offers. There are a lot of things going on here that I might be interested in. I came here to get a price, but I may want to say, what is up with this spring fling? What is up? I'm not a customer currently. Wow, that's a pretty good deal. I'm going to check that out. For current customers who are on your e-commerce platform who do this all the time, sure, they can go right to the top of the screen and take care of this. This looks a lot like, and John, who's been in e-commerce for fuel for 20 years, I would stack his knowledge of e-commerce against anyone in this industry. He works really hard to make our ordering screens, even though there are customer screens and brands that we're not in the fuel business, we're in the software business. John's thinking, how do we make it look as much like the mainstream e-commerce platforms as we can? This next one is an example of what I call, or Google termed, manners marketing, which is when you're online and people are performing e-commerce, thank them. So an e-commerce system can track a consumer's behavior on your e-commerce site. They know the screens they're visiting. They know they requested a price quote but didn't order. All of those different things, right? Consumers love when you know what they did. You know them, right? So rule number 1 in today's world is the consumers want you to know them. It's almost an unreasonable expectation that you can read their mind. They're outsourcing their memory. I forgot that I got a price quote for heating oil 5 seconds after I walked away from my phone and went into a meeting. But that afternoon, I got an email, I'm like, oh yeah, I got to work on that. So manners marketing is a thank you, and it's an outsourced memory. It's a way to remind people that you know what they did, and hey, you got to keep this top of mind. Buying your oil and propane is relatively important. Participating in manners marketing is something that you can't do with a portal or a website and a shopping cart, because those applications cannot track the behavior. This is a huge delineation between e-commerce and static online ordering, is this sort of this communication flow. The ordering process is very intuitive, right? You have to make it as, the e-commerce world is built around clicks. How many clicks does it take me to order? On the website, it takes 4. On an app, it takes 1. So e-commerce, again, we're extending this out here, is either on a device, a laptop, or some device where you're going to a website. You have a 4-click ordering. There are tiered pricing. It makes a lot of sense to people that the more I buy, the better price I get. But the system is smart enough to know that if you order 200 to get the cheap price and you take 100, it's going to charge you the 100 price and not the 2. And down at the bottom, it cautions you to say, hey, listen, let's not game the system here. You're going to be your price will be based on what you get, right? So again, answering questions, informing consumers around the ordering process in as few clicks as possible to avoid phone calls. This is part of the journey. If they call into your office, think about it. Take a step away. This is the conversation your CSR would be having. Well, how many gallons you need? What's your price? Well, it depends on what you order. I need 200. All right, that's this. But then if you don't get that much, Mr. Smith, okay, you don't want to have that conversation, right? We want to do that online. Again, an app is an extension of e-commerce. A good e-commerce system will have an app. That should be a 1-click or 2-click order, because the consumer at that point, when they're on an app, they don't. You think that they're impatient on a website or an e-commerce site, they're infinitely more impatient on an app. If it doesn't just say order and you push a button, then they're pretty much checked out. This is a really, really important part of e-commerce as well. This is a screenshot of our premium services, and this is only meant to capture additional products you can buy. So when you order oil or propane, before you check out, you are brought to a screen, and you should be in e-commerce, because think about this. People who bought this also bought that, right? Or did you remember when you bought shoes, did you remember to buy shoe polish or laces or whatever you might buy? That's really important, because that pushes the value of that ticket up, right? It's not just, I came here for one thing. An e-commerce system should know that you came here for one thing, but we'd like to sell you other things. And in the case of a heating oil and propane dealer, typically those are higher margin products and services. So as an example, there's additives, there's service. For propane companies, there can be appliance, and people put log sets on there, and really, really cool stuff and really creative things to engage the customer in a purchase beyond what they came for. Again, different than just online ordering. Now we're looking for additional revenue and growth. Order confirmations. How many times do you go online and you buy something and nothing happens? You order online through a portal, but nothing. You don't. Did it happen? Did it not happen? Do I have to call? Even granted, I'm no spring chicken, so I'm not in the internet generation, but I think to myself, I must need to call them. So an e-commerce system will immediately confirm that order. Again, the idea here is to avoid phone calls and allow that consumer to have peace of mind without worrying about what they did. And then here, this is not meant to show you how great it is that, yes, here's your payment information. Anybody can do that. It's how the real estate's being used. You have a refer a friend. You have $25 credits to their account, to your account. You have your social media links on the bottom. So you're taking what is kind of a banal communication. Here's your payment confirmation. But by the way, while you're here, here's all these other fun things that you can do. Everybody is a clickaholic. Our Refer a Friend program, again, not selling on the engine, but just more about the dynamics of the clickaholic thing. Our Refer a Friend program gets more clicks than anything. Doesn't mean that everybody who does it signs up one of their friends. It's just that people are clickaholics. Our dealers have learned to put things on all their communication that's a click-through for the clickaholics out there. And it's very, very valuable. Social media, which is on all of the communications in e-commerce, and it should be. There are some dealers out there, I'm sure some on the phone, that do an amazing job with Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube videos. It's such a great, the multiplicity effect of every time your consumers and your e-commerce consumers are doing something online, you're putting your social media in front of them. You're doing Facebook share in front of them all the time. Very powerful multipliers for your customer base. Last thing here, and I'm going to wrap it up, is sort of your dashboard as a dealer. I think e-commerce is really, really complex for some people because it requires that you or somebody in your organization or a partner in the marketing world really be great at digital marketing. Digital marketing is very, very unique. And it doesn't just mean that you send out e-blasts. It's about how you measure the success, the conversions, all those metrics to make you effective online. Unlike traditional marketing, which is shoot a shotgun, hope you hit something, and even when you hit something, you scratch your head and you think, did I mean to hit that? Or with digital marketing, you know, it's completely linear. If you send out an e-blast and a promotion, and you can go into your dashboard and say, okay, we got this many orders, we had this many people log into the incentive. So within your dashboard, it's not only showing you what you've done in your business, sort of in an operational sense, gallons, deliveries, timing, are any late, or do we have any people who ordered that are waiting 3 days? Oh my goodness, we got to get on top of this. At the bottom, there's this constant reminder of how are we doing online. At the end of the day, your fuel business online becomes a marketing exercise. It's about traffic, it's about content, it's about engagement, it's about conversion, and ultimately it's about creating revenue in business and growing your company. So with that, John, do you want to take it back for this part? Would you like me to run through this part?
Yeah, no, go ahead, Mark. You're on a roll. Just go ahead and wrap it up, and we'll turn it back.
Wrap it up. You put a nickel in me, I'll just keep going. So so we've shown you, I think today, you know, John talked about the acceleration in consumer behavior, online consumer behavior driven by COVID, which basically amplified an ongoing trend. We are well positioned in one way. We have some work to do in another way to sort of catch up to this consumer. It's challenging. It's like the goalpost can keep moving. It's like, you know, I feel bad even. You talk to dealers 10 years ago, you got to have a great website. You talk to dealers 5 years ago, you got to have a portal. And today it's like, okay, those things are great, but now we got to keep moving. We got to be thinking the entire customer journey online, fully digital, Amazon. So the goalposts are moving. And the only solace I can give you is that every industry is chasing the consumer. The consumer is in control. They're moving faster. Some innovative company somewhere keeps moving that goalpost. Our real challenge as an industry is we have to run faster because we were a little bit behind anyway, and it's okay. It all happened very, very fast. Let's not forget that the smartphone hit the market 12 years ago. We're not talking, you know, generations here. We're talking a decade that this has all been happening. As an industry, we just have to run faster. You have to leverage good technology and good concepts, challenge yourselves to be in the omni-channel digital world and to deliver the same value and brand that you currently have for many, many, many generations online. And that is the challenge for you. In terms of what you can do next, I think that the organizers will send out something, whether it's a slide deck or communications. We have a great video. It brings it to life. It really is a cool 6-minute kind of journey of what it's like to be an online fuel consumer, how e-commerce really works, how this real-time communication works versus static slides. Obviously, we can do a quick discovery call. We have a great relationship with the organizers and the people at EEE, and certainly appreciate the opportunity to speak to you folks today. We'd be happy to take this offline, even if it's just a few minutes to chat. We're not a high-pressure sales organization, never were, never will be. Happy to talk about that. And then we do online demos. Some people just want to say, hey, Stillman or John, I just want to see this thing. Will you just show me this product? I mean, I just want, what does e-commerce for fuel even look like? Walk me through the whole thing. We'd be happy to do that and look forward and honored to do that a lot for folks in the industry. So with that, oh, look at that, faces for radio. I'll wrap it up and turn it back over to you. I hope I didn't crush any time limit. I was on a bit of a rant there.
No, you did great. And your segue for faces for radio, as I came on, Mark, could not have been timed better. So with that, we have some questions. First is, when you say a dealer had 1,000 new registrations, how many of those were existing customers and how many were new customers?
I'll go ahead and grab that one. I don't know the clear answer to the question. There certainly, as we've talked with dealers, because we can't look at their existing customer base, there would naturally be some existing customers that would opt to now go online rather than engage that dealer by phone. But the dealers that I talked with, and obviously the ones that stood out and were prepared for this to actually have new customer offers out there and so forth, also said, listen, we have customers that are coming to us from other companies where they've had relationships for years. So they've come from a variety of different places. Again, can't address those 1,000 specifically, but I can tell you over the course of the close to 10 years now that we've been working with clients in terms of the engine, most of the registrations that they get to their e-commerce business is new customers to their business. It's not full service customers going over to e-commerce. While that's a fear, it doesn't happen in any material sense. And we've looked at this over the years because it's a common fear. A full service customer, and I'm a full service customer with my propane company because that's the service that fits my needs. So I don't switch to buying on demand or engaging via e-commerce. I'm a full service customer. Full service customers typically will stay full service customers because they want that level of service that they're getting from you. So anyway, hope that answers the question, or at least as accurately as I can, about those 1,000 customers.
Okay, next, how do you handle those that want to order and pay for a fill up since we don't know ahead of time the exact amount of fuel the customer's tank will hold?
Mark, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. Well, obviously the process for ordering is the customer can order any quantity they want, but when you go out there and your driver gets the whistle, that's how it's going to work. They'll get whatever quantity they had. In terms of the pricing and how the payments work, we have integrations to all the sort of prominent and major, and even some less prominent and major processing gateways and gateway services companies. So we take the payment ahead of time. We don't just put a hold on the account like the gas station does when you're standing there, or a hotel does. We'll charge the card for whatever the customer ordered, and then when the delivery is made, that reconciliation will be made, whether it's additional charge or a credit on the account. The good thing about our relationship with the payment processors is that often results in a downgrade of the rate, but in our case, it does not. In most cases, there are a couple of weird outliers in the processing world, but in most cases, that does not result in a downgrade of your rate from the utility rate. And we call it cash before delivery. You're paid before that truck rolls out of the yard. All the reconciliation is done after the delivery is made. The consumer is made aware of that during the ordering process. But that's very common in any kind of non-quantity known e-commerce business. So it's pretty slick and pretty easy. You get the money, reconciliation is done. Hope that answers it.
Mark, if I could just add to that, just for clarity, if the customer does take fewer gallons that were ordered, or they order a fill, and obviously they're not going to get 100% of that quantity, that credit that is due to the customer is all handled automatically. So there's no one you have to have in your back office in front of a terminal that's punching in credit card numbers or anything like that. It's all done automatically. And like Mark showed on an order confirmation, that customer also receives a delivery confirmation that shows, hey, maybe they ordered 200 and they got 180 because that's all the tank held. Then they were credited back automatically for 20 gallons. It shows exactly that reconciliation on that communications back to them. So the customer doesn't need to contact your office for any clarification, nor do you have to have anyone in your office that's doing anything manually in order to make all that happen. System handles it all.
And the price is adjusted as well. Price is adjusted based on quantity. If they got less than they ordered, they'll get a higher price. If they got more than they ordered, they'll get a lower price.
We have time for two final questions. Is this an app or a plugin for the dealer's website? So we've heard a lot about the value this brings. Can you talk to us mechanically about how it works? Well, I have, Eric's Oil and Propane. I have my website. How does this work with that billboard, as Mark referred to, that has become a necessity, but it doesn't bring a lot of value? This brings value. How do I integrate it with what I have as the necessity?
Let me take that one. Do you mind, boss?
You got it. I knew you wanted that.
It's such a great question. Real quickly, I know we were running out of time. It's both. So an e-commerce system is a website. So it can be handled in a couple of different ways. Most of our customers want their website to have their heritage brand, but with something like express or on demand or online. So Adrian's Awesome Energy is a traditional full service business, has a will call business they'd like to move online, or is in an area that has a lot of will call and COD. they can spin up adriansenergyonline.com and have a separate URL that handles their e-commerce business, but their brand, their logo, their look and feel, it's all symmetrical with their main sort of digital presence with their website. That's one way to do it, and that's the most effective way to do it. In that world, you can link back to your full service site. One thing we didn't talk about today is e-commerce customers sometimes will want to become full service because e-commerce dealers on their homepage will say, hey, if you want these things and price caps and budgets and all this, hey, that's a different channel for us. Click here and it's going to take you back to the regular website. The other thing is some people do attach the engine or e-commerce to their main website, Eric, and drive people there at one entry point, and then the consumer decides. That's the exception, not the rule. And yes, apps are essential to e-commerce. It's almost like even mobile responsive, talk about moving the goalposts, mobile responsive websites, which were the hottest thing in the world 3 years ago, are 10 minutes ago, right? It's got to be on an app. So yeah, apps are essential. Our system is linked to an app. It's all worked together, and the consumer can take any journey they want.
This is we have time for one final question, and it's very fortuitous because it's a beautiful segue sales pitch for what I'm going to mention for Monday in a moment. Here we are at the end of August. The heating season starts in 5 weeks, 6 weeks from, counting degree day perspective. Is there time to do this? It's a great process. It's a great value added feature. It's something that customers are demanding. Forget about how great it is, whether we think it's good or not. It's something that you have just explained to us that COVID has accelerated. But is it something that there's time to integrate for the heating season of 2020 and 2021?
That's the last word, boss.
Okay, I'll take that one. It's a good question given where we are in terms of timing. The answer is yes, it is possible physically to do it. Matter of fact, Adrian, who's our third partner in the Energy Engine business, took a client live yesterday, or it may have been Wednesday, and I think the time to live from signing an agreement with us was 32 days. So, and that was like Mark was talking about, that was an e-commerce site that's sitting complementary to their existing site. It can take longer than that because what Adrian needs in order to get your site live needs information from you, needs, your logos, your style and so forth, to be able to have the folks put in that style, need to set up your pricing regions, your pricing levels and that sort of thing. So as quickly as that information comes from a client that's going on board, the quicker that we can get them live. Others take longer than that, but if they do, it's because we're typically waiting for some information. Even the average client, is fairly quick. The other thing I will say is, given what Mark talked about in terms of the utility of e-commerce within the industry, there's not a bad time. We, over the years, forget about COVID, pre-COVID, the fourth quarter of the year winds up being our busiest time ourselves because, dealers traditionally, all of us take vacations during the summer, and then we kind of come back about this time of the year and the kids get back in school, and we get serious about, all right, what are we going to do with the business, this fall? What projects do we have? That sort of thing. And, have a lot of activity this time of the year. So, we would encourage you, we have clients that will be going live in December, in January, and they'll enjoy the benefit of a partial heating season. So there's one of the things we used to say is you want to be live by about next week, by Labor Day. But, the dealers have proven us wrong. When they go live, they get the benefit from it. The sooner you do it, the better. But if you want to push and be ready by the time we get into early October, it's certainly possible to be able to do that too.
Gentlemen, I thank you both. For those of you that would like to revisit this, we will be sending all registered attendees a copy of the program, so you'll be able, if you desire, to reach out to John and Mark individually and discuss your specific company's needs in greater detail. This is the next to last, as I said earlier, presentation. We focused on COVID as it relates to customers today. Monday, we're going to be talking about COVID as it relates to your business from your perspective, i.e. what you need to be communicating to your customers, and more importantly, what your customers need to be communicating to you. Something as basic as lots of people are going to be, doing school and work from home, whether it's a college kid, a grade school kid, one parent, two parents. That thermostat is more likely going to be on during a longer portion of the day this year than it has in a very long time for a lot of your customers. What do you need to be thinking about and implementing in the next 31 days? So we're going to have some IT, back office software, providers in the industry, and we're going to have some marketing folks from the industry discussing that and other questions that you need to be asking, and the questions that you need to be asking that you might not be aware that you need to be asking. Monday will be a 2-hour presentation. We're closing out. We've got 3 in each space, so we have 6 presenters Monday, 10 a.m. to noon. This morning's program will also, in addition to us sending it to you, it will be housed on the Eastern Energy web show site, and then next month it will be moved to our YouTube channel. So until Monday, thank you all. Thank you both gentlemen. Be safe and healthy, and we will see you Monday morning for our last program of Eastern Energy Expo On Demand. Thank you all. Be safe. Goodbye.